Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 147 based on novel. So let's start. The 5th. With a faint count in his heart, Xiao Yan quickly received a fist-sized spirit stone into the ring. Then he raised his eyes and looked at the remaining 5 giants. In a short moment, a total of 10 giant beasts, at present, half of them have died in Xiao Yan's hands. This scene also made all the strong fighters around him look stunned. The strength of one person and one beast in front of him can really be called terror. They both shot together, which made other strong fighters in the field feel dignified. In front of these two guys, the giant beast became like an ordinary warcraft, almost like a monster. Taking back his eyes, Xiao Yan looked up again and looked at the remaining 5 giants. A group of excited fire burst out in a pair of dark eyes. This powerful terror in the eyes of others, and almost no one dares to fight against it, is like a monster in Xiao Yang's eyes at the moment. Noticing Xiao Yang's eyes, the 5 giant beasts seemed to be frightened. They roared in a low voice, and their bodies couldn't help retreating back. Although as an array, they do not have the intelligence of human beings, they actually feel the threat from the black-robed man in front of them, a threat that is enough to destroy them. Oh, I know I'm afraid. Oh, it's a miracle, but... Seeing the giant beast in the house, Xiao Yang still knew he was afraid. Xiao Yang couldn't help but slightly raised his eyebrows. Even with a soft smile, he looked at the narwhal snake hovering in the void around him and wanted to do it again. But at this time, buzzing. The ancient and powerful momentum and pressure, like an invisible storm, suddenly swept through this space, and the terrible pressure fell on everyone's head. Under this momentum and pressure, all the people present turned pale. Even with Xiao Yang's strength, under this momentum and pressure, they also felt a lot of pressure. Although this imposing force is quite frightening, when all the powerful fighting emperors present look up at the source of this imposing force, everyone's eyes can't help but surge into a hot color. Although this momentum is terrible, it also indicates the strength of this force to all the strong fighting emperors present. If anyone can get this power, I'm afraid everyone present today will be trampled under his feet. What a terrible power! What on earth is this? It can be so powerful. On the stone platform, a group of strong fighting emperors looked up in horror at the top of the stone platform. Under the pressure of this momentum, even the flow speed of fighting spirit in their bodies slowed down. Then, driven by the desire for profit, many of the strong fighting emperors present raised the fighting spirit in their bodies one after another. The huge chi field immediately rose to the sky on the stone platform, with a momentum like a rainbow. The figure moved, and dozens of strong fighters moved. As soon as they stepped on the stone platform, they ran up and away. But at the next moment, everyone's face changed suddenly. At the moment when the soles of their feet just set foot on the stone platform, these strong fighters immediately felt that the momentum and pressure on themselves had risen a level. The pressure on the stone platform is actually higher and stronger. Every time you step on a stone platform, the pressure on the stone platform will become more and more terrible. It is really hard to imagine how terrible the momentum and pressure borne by the people of the 4 families at the top of the stone platform will be, although there is a threat to resist, but in the face of interests, no matter how powerful the threat is, the hearts of the strong fighting emperors present will not be willing to give up. After seeing the strangeness of the stone platform, a group of strong fighters immediately set off again. The fighting spirit in their bodies gushed out continuously. With a strong pressure on their heads, they flew away quickly towards the top of the stone platform. After the crowd, Xiao Yang also twisted his body again. After removing part of the pressure through his black robe, his body quickly flew to the top of the stone platform. Now that he has come, Xiao Yang will not miss such a good play. No matter what the final result is, if he doesn't spare no effort, how can he know whether he can get benefits from this relic? Whenever Xiao Yang's figure stepped on the stone platform, the pressure on his head seemed to increase 1,000 pounds. However, in the short time of short film carving, all the strong fighting emperors who had been flying quickly could only stand on the stone platform and blush. Except for a few of the strong fighting emperors who can still carry the pressure up slowly, the vast majority of people walk slowly on the stone platform with trembling all over. They look like old people in dusk, slow and laborious. What's more, even pale and exhausted, lying on his back on the ground, struggling with his heart, but suffering from the fact that his body can no longer support him. Although he is unwilling, he has to give up reluctantly. In the face of this terrible momentum and pressure, you who are always present, as the strong fighting emperor, can only complain endlessly in your heart. Ha ha, A bunch of losers know how to cultivate and fight chi all day. They don't pay attention to us physical practitioners. Now they finally know how to complain. On the high side of the stone platform, several strong bearded men, with a grimace on their faces, looked at the struggling emperor strongmen below. Although their strength is only 1 star, but compared with these people below, at this moment, their hearts are full of sneers. Most of the strong fighters have abandoned and continued to cultivate physical strength, because in their view, what can really play a role in combat is fighting spirit, not brute force. Although brute force is domineering, it is vulnerable in the face of fighting spirit. At least, these strong fighters think so. Of course, this point is indeed demonstrated in ordinary cultivation. The strength gained from a single cultivation of fighting chi is often stronger than those who cultivate the body at the same time, which can make most of the strong fighting emperors suppress some physical practitioners, except for the Wu Jitian of Zhanwu sect. The martial arts practiced by Wu Jitian are based on strength. While cultivating chi, they can also increase the strength of the body and complement each other. Only because of this, he can only practice the strength of the body to the highest level of his martial arts, and can't make further progress. When the cold laughter in the mouth of several men with Chiu beards came out, the faces of the powerful fighting emperors below were shaking with anger, but at the moment, the terrible pressure made them lose most of their combat power. Even if they tried their best to urge the fighting spirit in their bodies, it was difficult for them to break out half of their normal strength. So, who's that guy? Hey, isn't this the guy just now? It seems that he joined hands with a big snake to solve the 5 giants. But what's his speed? At the top of the stone platform, those bearded men looked at a man in black robe who was running up rapidly without slowing down. They were full of surprised words from their mouths. In the end, the look on the faces of the big men became an incredible look, staring at the black-robed man below until the latter had come to them, but the speed under their feet still did not slow down. This guy. It's terrible. In just a few minutes, the steps crossed hundreds of steps, and the speed remained unchanged, just like the terrorist pressure shrouded in this space, which had no impact on it. Several big men looked at each other, and their eyes showed a deep look of horror. If you can do this, the black-robed man in front of you is either terrible with strong strength, or it is his physical strength that has been powerful to the horror of reaching the realm. With this in mind, the look in the eyes of several big men suddenly coagulated. No matter which point it was proving that the man in black was terrible in front of him. Under the black robe, in Xiao Yang's dark eyes, the light of fire flows. On the body wrapped in the black robe, the purple and golden dragon scales cover the whole body. With each step of Xiao Yang's falling, the dust rises, forming a small hurricane, and his body continues to rush forward without stopping. Step. On the stone platform surrounded by golden light, with the dull footsteps of the doctor, a black figure has quickly disappeared on the higher stone platform with lightning speed. Different from those who fight against the emperor, Xiao Yang's every step will leave a shallow footprint on the golden stone platform. At the same time, his body will not stop at all. With only 1 step, he will stride over more than 10 steps, but in the twinkling of an eye, between Xiao Yang and the strong fight against the emperor behind him, it has opened a long distance. However, during this period, Xiao Yang's speed has not slowed down at all. Even, there is a hidden upward trend. This makes the muscles on the faces of the strong fighters behind Xiao Yang twitch for a while. Even if it's attacking people, it doesn't need to be so attacked. Of course, while they were shocked by Xiao Yang's speed, those who fought against the emperor also regretted. In ordinary times, they obviously had a lot of time to cultivate their physical strength, but they finally chose to give up. Now it's really the point. These arrogant fighting emperors know how to complain in their hearts, but unfortunately, it's too late. At least this time, they are doomed not to get real treasure. As time goes by slowly, in the end, there are few strong fighting emperors who can stand on the hillside of the whole stone platform. Even the people of the 4 families sit precariously near the top of the stone platform, trying to restore the fighting spirit consumed in their bodies. Compared with those ordinary fighting emperors below, the people of the 4 families all fought hard all the way by virtue of their fighting spirit. Although they were close to the top of the stone platform, at this time, their fighting spirit had also consumed a lot. In order to allow themselves to face all kinds of possible dangers at the top of the stone platform, they also had to take a break here. In this case, Xiao Yang is the only one who can maintain the speed and still sprint upward on the whole stone platform. As Xiao Yang gets closer to the top of the stone platform, the momentum and pressure he feels around him becomes more and more terrible. At the moment, Rao can't help feeling an extremely heavy pressure with Xiao Yang's physical strength. This is an extremely terrible phenomenon. Once it appears, it indicates that the momentum and pressure to be borne by Xiao Yang in front will be several times, or even dozens of times more than at the moment. But nevertheless, Xiao Yang had to do his best and fight. Although the sunshine after the rain is bright, before that, the whole world will be baptized by the storm. At the moment, Xiao Yang is like this. Although this momentum is terrible, as long as he can carry it, it will also be of great benefit to Xiao Yang himself. The cultivation of physical strength can be improved to the greatest extent only in adversity. At present, the pressure enveloping the whole stone platform is Xiao Yang's best hardstone refining. Step. When the soles of his feet fell, Xiao Yang's body also bent down suddenly. The terrible momentum was like a Mount Tai, which pressed heavily on Xiao Yang's back, making his breathing between his nose suddenly stagnate. The body under the black robe could not help shaking violently, and the muscles on his face could not help but twist. Then Xiao Yang clenched his teeth fiercely, his eyes were filled with blood, and his forehead was swollen with green tendons, which twisted like little snakes. At this moment, his face under his black robe became ferocious, his body suddenly shook, and his fighting spirit gushed under his feet. Xiao Yang's slightly squatting body suddenly burst forward, and the vigorous fighting spirit burst out in the soles of his feet, the sound of bang 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 bang. Wheezing. After taking hundreds of steps, Xiao Yang finally couldn't bear the terrible momentum around him. When his last foot fell, the figure under the black robe also fell to the ground with a plop, and his breath was short and heavy. Damn! With a low scold in his heart, Xiao Yang looked up at the top of the stone platform not far away. He felt a burst of regret in his heart. He didn't expect that he would finally fall at this time. The so-called work hard, decline again, and exhaust 3 times. In order to reach the top of the stone platform, Xiao Yang has exhausted all his strength, but unexpectedly, he will eventually fall here and see the top of the stone platform close at hand. At this time, I'm afraid anyone's heart will feel bad. At the higher position of the stone platform, several people of the 4 families have already noticed Xiao Yang in black robes. The eyes of the 4 families solemnly stared at Xiao Yang, who was not far away. The eyes of the 4 families were filled with great surprise. This mysterious man in black robe was able to run 100 steps one after another under the threat of terror that even they could not resist. It was really incredible. This man has strong physical strength. Huabamulu solemnly stared at Xiao Yang below. He had always been arrogant. He also had to be shocked by the physical strength of the black-robed man in front of him. From the point of view that the black-robed people basically did not use fighting spirit, the reason why the latter can fall in this position now is mostly due to their own physical strength. This point, with the eyesight of Hua Bai's 3-star fighting the Emperor, naturally can't be mistaken. As soon as they said this, Bai Ying and Zhuo Bentang, sitting nearby, couldn't help nodding slightly. They had always been few people, but they had to be convinced by the strength of their physical strength. At least, no one in their 4-member family could have such a strong physical strength. As for Sun Shuro, although the latter has gradually awakened from his previous grief, anger, his face looks extremely cold, so that even the 3 families next to him try to keep a distance from him. This guy finally stopped. I thought he would rush all the way to the top of the stone platform. Bai Ying stared at Xiao Yang, who was sitting on the ground below. The essence light flashed in the depths of his eyes, and even smiled bitterly. In this relic, but the home of their 4 families, if others steal the limelight, where will their 4 families face? Bai Ying's words fell, and the other 2 families around him also looked at the mysterious black-robed man under their eyes. Zhuo Lin of the Zhuo family, who was originally plain on his cheek, set off a slight fluctuation because of Bai Ying's words. It seems that since entering the ruins, the mysterious strong man seen outside the ruins has never appeared again, and the man in front of him happens to be wearing a black robe, which makes Zhuo Lin have some thoughts in his heart. At the same time, in Xiao Yang's arms below, the narwhal snake that originally lived on Xiao Yang's arm quietly emerged at the moment. Hey, brother, Xiao Yang is really powerful. I didn't expect that you could rush here in such a short time in front of the pressure that even I have a headache. Tut, your physical strength is really terrible. If you didn't have human breath, I should doubt whether you would be transformed into Warcraft. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang shook his head helplessly, sighed lightly, frowned and sighed. So what? I can't go up yet. Xiao Yang was helpless and lost in his heart. At the same time, he only felt that the pressure brought by the pressure around him was gradually increasing, and even his breathing became a little difficult. Hey, you can't go up. Isn't there still me? The narwhal snake smiled and said cunningly. Well, the look in his eyes was slightly frozen. Xiao Yang remembered that the little snake had been hiding under his sleeve robe, but was not oppressed by the momentum around him. Although he was weak, the narwhal snake was in a state. With this in mind, Xiao Yang was immediately overjoyed. Then, the small and exquisite body of the narwhal snake under Xiao Yang's sleeve robe suddenly twisted, slipped out of the sleeve robe, completely exposed to the air, and met the terror and pressure around. Then, on the surface of the narwhal snake, the black fighting spirit quickly surged up. Together with its petite body, it quickly became huge at this moment, but in a twinkling of an eye, it turned into a body, a huge super python. Roar. At the moment of appearing, the narwhal snake couldn't help roaring to carry out the heaven and earth. At the same time, its huge body suddenly trembled and its fighting spirit surged wildly, so that the void around the body couldn't help popping up a circle of space ripples like water waves. Even the terrible momentum shrouded over the positive stone platform, it was also shaken back a little in this earth-shaking roar. What's going on? This is narwhal snake. The legend has disappeared. I didn't expect it to appear here. Dipper-level narwhal snake, it's hard to deal with. The key is what the beast wants to do now. On the high platform, several members of the four families stared at the narwhal snake from Xiao Yang's sleeve robes in surprise. Everyone's face was surprised, and what shocked their hearts was that with the roar of the narwhal snake, the momentum and pressure in the space were shocked. It's said that narwhal snake has special blood and can suppress many opponents who are stronger than it. Today, it's really extraordinary, but with the strength of the Star King, it can create such a power. If you can tame it and use it for yourself. Witha stared at the narwhal snake with locked eyes, and one of the words was self-evident. Witha, you'd better put away those thoughts. Don't you see that the narwhal snake has a master? Even its strength has reached the level of a Star King. Do you think its master's strength will be worse than it? Hearing the words in Witha's mouth, Bai Ying turned around with a sneer and said coldly, "That's not necessarily." When Witha frowned and wanted to refute Bai Ying's words, the Zhou family had been carefully observing Xiao Yang's Zhuolin, but they slowly opened their mouth at the moment. As soon as the words fell, the hearts of the Hu family and the Bai family suddenly became cold. If this word came out of others' mouth, maybe they would scoff, but if it came out of Zhuolin's mouth, this makes them have to be cautious. Among these two people, especially Bai Ying of the Bai family, after hearing the words suddenly came out of Zhuolin's mouth, the look in the depths of his pupils couldn't help but flicker a little. In his heart, Bai Ying has guessed about the black-robed man at present, but if the black-robed man's identity is exposed at this time, it's not a good thing. So Zhuolin's son has guessed the clue? Witha's round eyes turned for a while, but he laughed. Listening to the meaning of the words, it seemed that he didn't care, as if he didn't believe what Zhuolin had just said. Do you want to know? Zhuolin's face was flat. His eyes were like sharp swords, staring at Witha, and his tone was indifferent. What do you want to know? It's just that I'm curious to hear what Zhuolin's son said and ask at will. Hearing the speech, Witha was a little stunned. Even if he came back and laughed, he moved his eyes away. Although Zhuolin is not as strong as him, the edge of the latter revealed from his bones is that people dare not fight with him. Seeing this, Zhuolin turned angrily and looked at Bai Ying. The latter smiled and moved his eyes. In the face of Zhuolin, Rao wins in vain, but he also doesn't dare to be careless. At the same time, Xiao Yang, not far from the people of the four families, was also in the moment when the powerful momentum around him was removed. He was like a fish in the water. He stood up from the ground in an instant, and the whole person's state also recovered rapidly. Come on, let me take you up. The narwhal snake laughed and twisted its huge tail, which forced Xiao Yang into it when he regained his consciousness. His huge body suddenly shook and his fighting spirit rippled, forcing the momentum around him back. Then, his huge body suddenly turned into a black light, like a meteor chasing the moon, and went straight up to the top of the stone platform. No matter how terrible the momentum around him was, he was resisted by all of them. Xiao Yang, who saw this scene, couldn't help feeling a burst of surprise. The narwhal snake really deserves to be a leader in the world of Warcraft. The physical strength is more than a star and a half stronger than Xiao Yang. In the face of the terrible momentum around him, he can sprint forward at such a fast speed. It is really called terror. Shua. As the fierce breaking wind sounded around the people of the four families, the terrible momentum was forcibly broken by the narwhal snake on Sunday. The hurricane swept through and blew up the sleeves and robes of several people sitting on the upper wall of the high platform. Until this time, several people reacted. Suddenly, while their faces changed dramatically, they also looked at it quickly. However, when they looked back, The huge body of the narwhal snake had left them far away, but in the twinkling of an eye, the huge body of the narwhal snake had stood on the top of this huge stone platform. Standing on the top of the stone platform, Xiao Yan felt the terrible momentum that had completely dissipated around him, and his body was relieved. Looking up, Xiao Yan looked at him with a look of prudence and curiosity in his eyes. At the moment, what appeared in front of Xiao Yan was not an endless ladder like before, but a huge square. The square is round as a hole, and mysterious runes are engraved everywhere. It is not difficult to see from these runes that this should be an array. The size of the array is included in the square, hundreds of feet away from where Xiao Yan stands at the moment. Looking at it, there are huge stone piers around the square. The stone piers are carved into lotus flowers in different shapes. There are 31 stone piers in total. They keep a certain distance from each other and surround the whole square. At this time, there is a stone pier not far from Xiao Yan's side. The lotus on it is open. Although it is carved from stone, it looks vivid and invisible. It looks like it's really swaying in the air. Looking around for a week, Xiao Yan's eyes looked towards the center of the square. At a glance, a huge statue was standing in the center of the square. At the moment when Xiao Yan saw the statue, the look in his eyes could not help but change slightly, and his pupils narrowed slightly. The shape of the statue was a peerless beauty. However, what surprised Xiao Yan at the moment was that the appearance of the statue was the appearance of the woman Xiao Yan saw in the maze when he just entered the ruins. At that time, although the woman was wrapped by the fog, at last, when Xiao Yan left the array, his soul power spread out, but he detected the appearance of a woman. Now, when compared with the statue in front of him, Xiao Yan suddenly felt a sudden. So, is she the owner of this relic? Lightly nodded, Xiao Yan whispered in his mouth. Then, the narwhal snake on his side moved and became as exquisite as a small snake again. It was suspended in the void beside Xiao Yan. A pair of bright eyes like jewels scanned around curiously. Without Xiao Yan's consent, it didn't dare to run around. Hehe, this gentleman really has extraordinary strength. I think a group of us wasted 9 cattle and 2 tigers in order to climb here, but I can't imagine that he climbed here so easily. I really admire him. At this time, a slightly familiar laugh came from behind Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan turned and looked. The speaker was Hua Ba, the leader of the Hua family. Beside him, Hua Tianyi, whose face is slightly pale, is obviously unlikely to come here alone. If you want to come here, you can't do without Hua Ba's help. Otherwise, with Hua Ba's strength, it won't take so long to come here. Seeing them, Xiao Yan quickly swept his eyes under his black robe, but he didn't dare to stay too much. The other party is a real strong man fighting the emperor. His rash exploration will only let the other party seize the opportunity and expose himself in turn. This is not what Xiao Yan wants to see. His eyes quickly swept over the 2 people in front of him, and then Xiao Yan looked behind them. Now that the Hua family have arrived, the other 3 should also arrive. Sure enough, while Xiao Yan looked up, Bai Jia Bai Ying, Sun Jiasuan Shuo, Zhua Bentang and Zhua Lin of the Zhua family also appeared in Xiao Yan's sight. Hehe, this gentleman is really powerful. Bai Ying, the leader of the Bai family of the next 4 families, doesn't know his name. Bai Ying, dressed in a white robe, arched his hand at Xiao Yan and said respectfully. As soon as he said this, the other 3 families immediately looked over, but at this time, the narwhal snake floating in the void beside Xiao Yang suddenly opened his mouth, and the roar immediately came out of his mouth. At that time, the faces of the 4 families also changed suddenly and quickly retreated back. Roar. When the roar fell, the people of the 4 families looked at the narwhal snake angrily. Although the little snake in front of us looks harmless to humans and animals, after seeing the previous scene, even if the people present are strong against the emperor, they don't dare to underestimate the little snake in front of us. After all, he is a strong man fighting the emperor. As a Warcraft, his power is powerful. In addition, he is the leader in the world of Warcraft, which makes people dare not underestimate it. With the narwhal snake blocking it, the people of the 4 families never knew the answer they wanted to hear. Therefore, they had to look at it and press down their doubts. The crowd dispersed, and then they stared. After a few exclamations, the crowd's eyes finally stagnated on the statue in the center of the square. The statue is a peerless beauty, and at this moment, between the 2 palms of the statue, a golden light like a flame is rising slowly, emitting dazzling golden light, which makes people dare not look directly at it. It seems that the pressure should come from that thing. The power of inheritance. No wonder it will be so powerful. The people of the 4 families stared at the light group with different faces. Their eyes were full of pure light. At the same time, Their hearts were filled with all kinds of ideas at the moment. However, in the end, when people's eyes slowly swept over the array on the ground of the square, no one was willing to try. The array left by the strong cannot be easily eroded by time. Now it seems that this array should be triggered by someone. After that, the whole stone platform will really live, but I don't know what terrible array they will face at that time. Ta-ta. At this time, the heavy footsteps behind the people finally sounded. Looking back, they found that it was the strong fighting emperor behind them. Finally, someone climbed here with hard support. Time passed, and about an hour later, in one corner of this huge square, there were finally nearly 30 strong fighting emperors. This number of strong fighting emperors was enough for them to sweep any force in the western regions. Even if it was as strong as the 4 major gates, it was no exception. Of course, the goal of these people at this moment is not the 4 major doors, but the golden light held in the palm of the hand by the statue. Everyone looked at each other, but no one dared to move, because no one could guarantee what terrible danger was hidden within the scope covered by that array. The silent atmosphere in the field lasted for a long time. Everyone stared at the golden light in the hands of the statue in the middle of the square, but no one dared to try. The previous 10 giant beasts were so terrible. At present, the array has been placed in front of them. How can it be less powerful than it? For their own life, no one dared to come forward, whether it was the 4 families or the fighting emperors who came later. On the field, everyone stood at random. They all had ideas in their hearts, looked at each other and were cautious with each other. At the moment, Xiao Yan, who lives under the black robe, also disappeared into the crowd after the strong fighters came. His eyes under the black robe scanned back and forth in the field, and his heart was also calm. Xiao Yang knew that the more this time came, the more he had to be calm. Everyone knew that inheritance was valuable. Anyone present didn't have compassion for him, but that's why he needed to be calm more and more. The so-called gun shot out of the head bird. The first person to enter the array will inevitably come to no good end. Xiao Yang will not be stupid to that extent. With the silence of the crowd, the atmosphere on the field became particularly dignified and urgent. Even their breathing became cautious. Everyone's heart was pressed with an invisible boulder. As long as the boulder was completely pressed down, the people present would immediately boil like an oil pan. However, before that, it needs to be heated gradually with warm fire. As time went by, in the twinkling of an eye, the people had stood for 2 hours at the top of the stone platform. At this time, the originally silent strong fighting emperors in the field also stirred up one by one and waited without results. This is not what they want to see. This group of people, you can't wait for the big array to gradually disappear in the migration of years. Even if Xiao Yang comes, the people of the 4 families can't wait. Damn it. All of you here are strong fighters against the emperor. Unexpectedly, you will be bullied by such a large array that has not been opened. Will you wait here forever if the large array does not break up? Suddenly, a cold hum mixed with gloom and disdain came out of the crowd, which made many people present cast their eyes on the past. Under the black robe, Xiao Yang had no expression on his face, but he knew in his heart that the calm lake was finally to be broken by this sudden stone. At the same time, there was a sneer on the faces of several people in the 4 families. They waited for a long time. Finally, they had to wait for this moment. Joke, since you are not afraid, why do you continue to stand here and experience it yourself? Try whether this array will exist in name only. Perhaps, the energy in the array has already dissipated in the years. If you try, maybe the inheritance is yours, isn't it? Hey, I know this array is terrible, and I dare to urge you here. Since we are all strong fighters against the emperor, you are not afraid, you are going. Then, the crowd was full of words with various meanings, and the voice was like a continuous fire. For a moment, the old man who was the first to speak just now looked like an iron blue on his old face at the moment, but even so, the words in those people's mouth did not stop at all, as if he was deliberately trying to annoy him. Bastard! Since you dare not enter, I'll take you in. Suddenly, the old man shouted angrily, called with his big hand, and a dark iron bar immediately appeared in the old man's hand. The people stared, and the look in their eyes immediately changed. When they looked at the old man, they couldn't help but look a little surprised. This is a dragon stick. Since this is a dragon stick, doesn't it mean that he is Mu Kunlun? Tut, it's said that this guy has killed many strong fighters of the same level. I didn't expect that even he was attracted to this ancient ruins. The iron stick in the old man's hand at the moment is impressively a stick with the thickness of a normal calf and a length of about jong, on which an ink black dragon is carved. As soon as the people present saw the iron bar, They immediately looked at the old man with a look of horror, and they were even more afraid of it. The same fighting Emperor Strong Man, but the fighting Emperor Strong Man who died in the hands of the old man has exceeded the number of hands. It is not difficult to imagine how terrible the strength of the old man is. I'm afraid that even among all the fighting Emperor Strong men present, the strength can be called a leader. Even Xiao Yan, who was wearing a black robe, couldn't help but show a look of surprise in his dark eyes after hearing the evaluation of the old man from several people around him. Such achievements can really show the strength of the old man. With this in mind, Xiao Yan couldn't help but sink a little. It seems that the powerful people in this relic trip are more than 4 families. Even if they are separated by these independent people, how can they be ordinary people? After the iron bar in the old man's hand was exposed, the several strong fighting emperors who had spoken unkindly to him immediately stopped their mouths. At the same time, the look on their faces suddenly became dignified. Obviously, they have heard of the name of Mu Kunlun. You are Mu Kunlun. In the field, a fat old man facing Mu Kunlun showed a solemn look. Facing him, no one dared to underestimate him. Since I've heard of my name, then, just get in there. Mu Kunlun's target is obviously the fat old man opposite. Therefore, when the loud applause came out, the dragon stick in his hand also waved violently. One end of the iron stick waved fiercely in the void. The strong wind broke the stone slab under his feet instantly, leaving a deep groove. At the same time, the old man's body suddenly shot out at this moment, and the iron stick waved. In the middle of the air, the sound of the blowing wind came to the fat old man in the twinkling of an eye. In the face of Mu Kunlun, the fat old man dared to be dignified in his heart and careless in his face. While he looked up angrily, the fighting spirit in his body flowed rapidly in the meridians of his whole body. With a big hand and a giant axe, he appeared in the fat old man's hand. Let me see if your Mu Kunlun is really as powerful as the outside world. The fat old man shouted angrily, and his legs looked thick and short. Suddenly, his body immediately swept into the air and bombarded the oncoming Mu Kunlun. Although the old man looks fat, his speed is not at all inferior to the strong Mu Kunlun. His whole body is like a meat ball. He somersaults forward in mid-air, swings his huge axe in his hand, and instantly tears the void. He is splitting down against Mu Kunlun's head. Looking at this posture, it seems that he wants to split the latter into 2. Little skill. Seeing this, Mu Kunlun smiled coldly, and his spirit surged in his body. He quickly injected the dragon stick into his hand along his arm. Then, the iron stick waved. At the moment when the giant axe fell head-on, the iron stick in Mu Kunlun's hand suddenly shook, and his body suddenly rose up. Then, when the fat old man's giant axe fell, Mu Kunlun waved the iron stick from top to bottom. The iron bar at the end of the dragon's tail bombarded the fat old man's chest. Bang! A loud noise came out, and the fat old man's body suddenly burst out uncontrollably. Finally, under the eyes of everyone in the field, he fell to the ground. Puff! At the moment of getting up, the fat old man couldn't help recognizing a mouthful of red blood, but then his bloody mouth aroused a grimace, stared at Mu Kunlun over the crowd, and said with a fierce smile, "Mu Kunlun, originally, you are just like this. With this stick, you want to really hurt me, but it's far from enough." Although a mouthful of blood spits out, the overall momentum of the fat old man has not been reduced. His scarlet tongue licks his thick lips. The old man gets up and wants to start again with a wave of his axe. Yes, my stick can't hurt you, but it can kill you. At the end of the discourse, Mu Kunlun smiled sharply, and there was a trace of coldness in the discourse. Hearing this, the fat old man suddenly regained his mind. His eyes turned quickly from the pity smile on the corners of the mouths of the powerful fighting emperors in the distance. He looked down. At this moment, at his feet, a series of crooked mysterious runes were scattering a dazzling golden light, which made people not look directly. This is... No. With 2 shrill shouts in his mouth, the fat old man suddenly started and ran away without looking back. However, at this time, behind the fat old man, a sharp golden light like an arrow suddenly shot from somewhere. In a twinkling of an eye, it pierced the fat old man's chest. At the same time, the old man's body running forward suddenly stagnated in the middle of the air. In the middle of one eye pupil, the vitality dissipated rapidly and turned into a dark hole. Then, it fell heavily to the ground. After that, the thumb-sized hole that pierced his chest gradually expanded and shrouded in golden light. Finally, the body of the fat old man disappeared in the sight of everyone. Seeing this scene, the people present suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. The coolness soaked in their hearts rose rapidly at the bottom of their hearts. Looking at the strange scene in front of us, everyone present couldn't help beating for a moment. The horror in his heart was like the burst of the Yellow River. But at the same time, in the hearts of all the strong fighters, the hot mood also rose. Although the big array in front of them was terrible, at least they had a bottom in their hearts. The so-called knowing yourself and the enemy can win 100 battles. All strange dangers are the most frightening in the heart. Compared with the former, although the big array looks powerful at the moment, at least it gives a sigh of relief to the strong fighters present. Hiss, hiss, hiss. But when they were panting at the bottom of their hearts, suddenly, on this huge square, the broken empty sounds of sniffing suddenly sounded. At that time, the hearts of the people present were immediately shocked, and their eyes immediately looked along the place where the sound came. Over there. It's the stone pier. And this way. So is this stone pier. Surrounded by the people's eyes, I saw that on the 31 stone piers in the field, golden pillars of light kept rising into the sky. In the twinkling of an eye, on the 31 stone piers, there was already a pillar of light rushing into the sky and disappearing into the invisible void. Then, at that high altitude, 31 golden light columns emit a golden light respectively, blend with each other in the sky, and finally gradually form a huge array covering the whole square. At the center of the array, the dazzling golden light hangs high like a round of sun. The golden light shines brightly and dazzles the world. However, in the face of this magnificent and admirable scene, these strong fighters can't raise the slightest feeling in their hearts. If they do, they can only be frightened. With the opening of this array, the people present clearly saw that the lotus stone piers around the square turned slowly. At the same time, on the surface of the stone pier, the obscure mysterious runes gradually became clear, and the dazzling golden light burst out from the lotus heart. For this small change of stone pier, all the strong fighting emperors present turned a blind eye. Everyone looked up and stared at the huge array in the sky. The golden light shines, reflecting a bright light from the eyes of a group of strong fighters, just like the stars in the night sky, bright and dazzling. Hiss. Suddenly, when all the strong fighters on the court stared at the golden light like the rising sun, the light on it suddenly flourished. Then, with a hissing sound breaking the air, a golden light column with a thickness of jong suddenly burst out from the golden light, and in a moment, it tore the void like a meteor falling into the sky, facing a group of fighting emperors and strong men below. The appearance of this scene caused a sudden change in the faces of all the people present. The strong fighters who had gathered together one moment before would be scattered the next. Despite this, the speed of the golden light was not slow at all. After all, 2 old people failed to escape in time and were instantly pierced by the golden light column. In front of the golden light column, the fighting armor condensed from their body surface was like tofu. It was destroyed by the golden light column in an instant. Then, when the scattered crowd stopped, looking back, the 2 strong fighting emperors turned into golden light and gradually dissipated under the golden light column. Seeing this scene, the people in the field were suddenly shocked. They thought that the 2 were also the powerful ones fighting against the emperor. They would have no resistance under the golden light column. Even though everyone present boasted of their extraordinary strength, they could not help but feel a refreshing coolness in the face of the golden light column. This array is too terrible. Among the crowd, many strong fighters looked at the huge array in the sky with fear, especially when they looked at the golden light, their eyes showed a deep color of fear. Although they came here for the treasure among the ruins, they never thought they would die here. They boast of high strength. As the strong man of fighting emperor, there are few people who can kill them even if they look at the whole western region. However, even if they are as strong as fighting emperor, they can't survive for a second under this array. How can this not make them fear? However, just when some of the strong fighting emperors wanted to turn around and retreat, they found that there was no way out around the stone platform. The previous stone steps had long disappeared. Now all they can see is the bottomless abyss. At this moment, all the strong fighting emperors in the field came back to their senses. Everyone's faces, including those of the 4 families, were dignified and had no way to retreat. The array in front of them made them have no power to resist. From this moment, it seems that these people are trapped in a Jedi. Above the void, Xiao Yan wearing a black robe, and the look on his face under the black robe is also extremely dignified. A pair of painted black eyes are constantly scanning the whole square, hoping to find a glimmer of vitality. However, looking around for a week, what Xiao Yang saw was the bright golden light everywhere, and he couldn't find any flaws at all. From now on, I'm afraid the deepest part of this relic is simply a trap. I'm afraid the owner of the relic doesn't intend to inherit his cultivation at all. Damn. There are no flaws. Can we only wait for death here? Under the black robe, Xiao Yan frowned. A pair of palms under the sleeve robe had been tightly clenched into fists unknowingly. Rao was in a state of mind like Xiao Yang. Now, in this desperate situation, he can't continue to calm down. At this time, the huge array worked again in the sky, and the dazzling golden light burst out suddenly. The whole square was shrouded in golden light in an instant. Everyone present couldn't help closing their eyes, and then the fierce sound of breaking the air sounded again. This time, the attack of the array was more violent than before. At the same time that the breaking wind sounded in everyone's ears, among the two standing crowds, the shrill screams suddenly sounded, and the crowd in the sky fled in panic again. In the blink of an eye, the golden light shrouding the square had dispersed, and the people raised their eyes. Then they saw that there were two golden pillars falling in the sky, and this time, the golden light killed nearly 10 strong fighting emperors at one time. 10 fighting emperors, if they were placed in the outside world and in the western regions, they could all be terrorist beings who can walk sideways. However, now, in this relic, they are fleeting. This video end here.